Got nice to have you with us on a busy afternoon as we kick off a broadcast day here on Mad Dog Unleashed. Good to have you aboard on this Thursday, on the 22nd day of March 2018. As we chat, Eddie Erickson and Colin Schmeling in the house today. Steve Torrey breaking down Jason Pierre-Paul. Nice to have him with us with Dan, with our good buddy Danny Cannell. Billy Zimmerman has returned after a little dusting out there in Huntington, a little loss of power for 6 minutes, but Bill has returned, and he's back in the mix here too today. 888 Mad Dog 6, that's your two-way sports talk telephone number on this Thursday day as we get you home here now on a big sports day. You got a little golf going on right now if you care about that. You have obviously a week away from Major League Baseball opening next Thursday, 12:37, Cubs and Marlins. We have a little of that going on right now as we get ready for the start of the Major League Baseball season. We have a football trade with the Giants. We have Sam Darnold, who I guess wooed him and wowed him at his pro day out there in L.A. Maybe that makes the Browns the #1 favorite to get him with the first pick. And obviously we have the NCAA tournament today. And that is where we will begin on this busy Thursday afternoon. 4 games today, 4 games tomorrow, Sweet 16. The real tournament, starts. As it turns out, normally it used to be the little guys event the first weekend of the tournament. And then when the second weekend came, it became a big guys event. Well, this year it's not the case because you got so many little guys still in the mix, Loyola, Nevada, what have you. So as a result of that, Kansas State, not necessarily a huge player. Clemson, not necessarily a huge player. So you have a little different feel. Texas A&M and Texas Tech, not little guys, big schools, but, not the prototypical blue blood college basketball program here in the Sweet 16. The 2 games early today, the 2 games late tonight, same thing goes tomorrow. And then we go regional finals 2 and 2 on Saturday afternoon, and then Saturday, I should say, evening. I think the games will probably 6 and 8:45. And then, of course, on Sunday, it's probably, I don't know, I haven't looked at the times. I'm going to guess it's 2:40 and 5 on Sunday afternoon. In Kansas and Duke will be the last game of the weekend, I bet you. That game is tomorrow night. That's a Nance, Raff, and Grant Hill deal, and they will want to put that game, if it's on CBS, which I'm not even sure if it is, but if it's on CBS, they'll want to put that game right up next to 60 Minutes. But anyway, regardless of the TV programming aspect of it, you got the 4 teams tonight, and led by the 2 Cinderellas, Loyola of Chicago, won a championship in 1963. Some stories about that in today's newspapers. The 98-year-old nun is getting a tremendous amount of publicity, and deservedly so. He's been there for a long time. 2 buzzer beaters for them. The first one really dramatic. The second one wasn't necessarily a buzzer beater because down the court went Tennessee and got a good look at it and lost. But from a standpoint of Loyola, they got a story to tell that's fascinating. And, of course, from a standpoint of Nevada, who did not play well at the end of the regular season, got buried by San Diego State in the championship game, I should say the semifinal game of their conference tournament, down by 30 at the half. Nevada has turned it around. They were fortunate to beat Texas. I think they got a very fortunate call at the end of that Texas game. I have a chance to tie the game at the end of regulation. That was a bad foul call, but they put him at the line with a couple seconds to go. And then, of course, the 22-point comeback against Cincinnati late on Sunday. It's got a little interesting feel to it. Again, 2 Cinderellas, Loyola with some history. Nevada's Nevada. Musselman's been around a long time. It drives you crazy on the sidelines, but he's been around a long time. They got the twins, from NC State who are good. I mean, Nevada's a good team. I mean, they beat Rhode Island in the course of the year. They played a good schedule. They played the TCUs, the Texas Techs, and the Texas A&Ms, so they did a good job with their schedule. Nobody's going to sit there and argue that. They deserve to be here, and you come from 22 down to beat the 2 seed as they did last Sunday. Why not? I mean, nobody's going to argue with Nevada, despite the fact they were fortunate to beat in the first game Texas. So that game is at 7. I have no idea. Anybody who picks that game is throwing darts at a board. You have no idea. I mean, that game is I'm sure that game, I can look it up. I bet you that spread is no more than a basket either side. Vegas doesn't know who to pick in that game. Let me take a look at the line. The line in that game, there you go, Nevada won. That's all you need to know. Nevada won in that game. I mean, if you want to guess, I think Loyola will win because I think Loyola has been a little bit more consistent in the 2 games that they have played so far than Nevada's been. Nevada easily could have lost. Well, listen, Loyola could have lost both too. But, I mean, Nevada should have lost against Cincinnati. I mean, it was a 22-point deficit, and they came from behind. So they were really fortunate there. And, of course, they, again, I didn't like the foul call in the Texas game. So, Nevada, I think Loyola might be a little better at this point. So I will pick Loyola to win that game. Your guess, again, is as good as mine. I wouldn't bet the ranch on it by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll take Loyola to get to an Elite Eight game. Boy, it's hard to believe that I'm talking about Loyola as an Elite Eight team in the 2018 basketball tournament, and then they play the winner of Kentucky and Kansas State. And I know the kid from Kansas State is returning, but I just don't see Kentucky losing this game. Kentucky seems to have, found a little mojo. These kids are no longer freshmen necessarily. They did a good job in the SEC tournament. They beat Georgia that had won a couple of games in a row. They obviously beat Tennessee that had done a nice job in the regular season, beating Kentucky twice. They beat them last Sunday afternoon. They had a short work week. They went to Boise. He's always moaning and groaning about where he sent Calipari to Boise. As it turns out, Davidson was a very hard first-round game. They could have lost that game. Davidson did not shoot the ball well late in the game. Kentucky did not make a 3 in that game and still won. Holding on late. They were up by 8 to 10 points in the last 3-4 minutes, and then, Davidson just did not make any shots. And then they got Buffalo, not Arizona, and you like to play that team after they won a big upset in the first game because I think that team is not capable of winning that second game. I think that's what hurt UMBC. They win that first game. I don't know if they got a second game in them within 48 hours. They did not, and nor did Buffalo. Buffalo was competitive in the game. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know they got blown out in the last few minutes, but losing by 20. But Buffalo was relatively competitive in the game. But Kentucky's got athletes. Would you think otherwise? And they got Knox is big. They have a couple of big kids. The kid from Canada can play. He's had a big tournament so far. I mean, not as unbelievable a Kentucky team as we've seen, Corey Anthony Towns or Anthony Davis. They're not on his team per se, Michael Gilchrist, people like that, but they're still good, and they seem like they're getting better. He knows what he's doing in the tournament. He should really have 2 championships instead of 1. Missed free throws cost him against Kansas a long time ago. I'd be surprised if Kentucky doesn't beat Kansas State. I don't trust Bruce Weber anyway. I know he's done a nice job winning 2 games, Creighton, of course, and then the other day, but against UMBC. But I know the kid's coming back, and he's an all Big 8 or Big 12 performer, but I don't see Kentucky losing this game. So that means it's Kentucky and Loyola in the Elite 8, and you want to bet Loyola in that game? I wouldn't, that's for sure. So I think Kentucky's got the easiest path out of the big teams in this Sweet 16 roundup. Duke's got to get through Kansas, and likewise with Kansas. Villanova is not that difficult either, but West Virginia can be tricky. Purdue's got a little something going on right now with the kid out, so who knows? But Kentucky's got 3 teams they should really beat. So Kentucky should be, at the end of the day, by Saturday night, Kentucky should be ready to go to San Antonio. I'd be surprised if they're not in if they're not in the Final Four by the end of the weekend. And then, of course, the other bracket tonight. I love the Michigan game against Texas A&M. I think that's the best game of the night. Texas A&M has got size. Texas A&M's got a lot of athletes up front. They are going to out-athlete Michigan. I can guarantee you that. Michigan does not have a lot of great players. I mean, they play a great system. He's a wonderful coach. They had a nice run throughout their regular season conference tournament. But they are very lucky to beat Houston, and Houston had 1 player. They were down 10-0 to Montana. No, they won the game going away by 14, but they were down 10-0. Michigan has not played well in the NCAA so far. And A&M is on a big roll. Now, A&M's issue tonight is they played in Charlotte on Sunday afternoon, I think it was. They played Sunday night, 5 o'clock. They played in Charlotte on Sunday night, and then they play an early Thursday afternoon game in L.A. Now, that is hard. That's a 4 o'clock game tonight after they finished up 7 o'clock on Sunday night, and they had to stop at home in between. That is a tricky transition. Remember, Michigan won Saturday night, and they won in Wichita. They go home. They got an extra day. I mean, A&M, they won the game Sunday. They probably flew home to College Station. They got home late Sunday night. They probably kind of mellowed out Monday. They probably did a small practice yesterday and back on a plane to go to L.A. for the day's game, and it's a 4 o'clock local time game. So that would worry me a little bit about the A&M deal with the travel. They're better than Michigan from what I've seen. They are better than Michigan. I've seen A&M play both their games. I saw A&M against, who was it in the first game? I think it was Florida, was it not? Or was it Austin? I think it was Florida. Texas Tech played Austin. But I saw them in both games, and I like what I like what I saw in both games. So I think, they didn't play Florida. Whoever they played in the first game, I watched. A&M's good. I think they're better than Michigan, but in the travel and beeline and difficult to prepare for. That's the best game of the night at 7:37. That is the best, or is it maybe whatever time it is? It's the first game. That is the best game of the night. I think that's the second game in the nighttime session, the early session. That's the best game. Then, of course, the late game tonight, is maybe the worst game. Xavier and Florida State. Florida State against Xavier. Florida State and Gonzaga. This is after Florida State knocked out Xavier. Gonzaga, not so good the first game. Good effort. I didn't see the Ohio State game on Saturday early afternoon. Gonzaga's good. All of a sudden, they got some experience. Mark Few couldn't get himself to a Final Four, nor could the program prior to last year. Now has found a little rhythm in the NCAA. I mean, they've won a lot of games. They've won 7 of their last 8 NCAA games. 2 this year, 5 last year. And Gonzaga's got a couple of players. We know the kid made the huge 3 against Greensboro in the first game. They had a good finish against Ohio State in the second game. Florida State, I never trust. They had a great 18-4 run against Xavier at the end to polish that game off. I would like Gonzaga tonight. I think you have to in L.A. I think you have to like Gonzaga tonight. Florida State, tough travel for them too now. Florida State, very, very tricky travel. Didn't they play on Sunday against Xavier? They played that game in Nashville, Tennessee, and then they're playing tonight in L.A. I mean, I'm assuming they went home for a half a day and then flew to L.A., so like Texas A&M, tricky travel. So I think the best game of the night is the A&M Michigan game. I think the easiest game of the night is Kentucky. I think the best game is Michigan A&M. The easiest to pick is Kentucky. The most intriguing is Nevada and Loyola. And the worst, where you can hit the sack and say enough, is the Gonzaga game. Those are the ball games on this Sweet 16, the first half of a 2-day extravaganza. 4 games, 2 games, 2 games, 2 games, and then our title. Then a championship game, a week from Monday. We continue here on Mad Dog Unleashed. We're back right after.